And here he is, Michael Savage.
When Trayvon Martin was first shot, I said that this could have been my son. Another way of saying that is Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago. And when you think about why, in the African-American community at least,
white folks was in the cave when we had built empires. We learned to admire them, but they knew to admire us. We built pyramids before Donald Trump ever knew what architecture was. We taught philosophy and astrology and mathematics before Socrates and them Greek homos ever got around.
Personality, walk with personality, talk with personality, smile with personality, charm with personality, love with personality, and personality.
Life is good. You know something? I wait till this time of day every day. I wait all day long for this. I got the last word in talk radio. What could be better? And Obama is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, the guy keeps going lower and lower and lower by the week. Now he's a street preacher. He's gone down to the level of the beginning. He's gone back to the beginning. He's now, there's a picture that you got to see of none other than the race-baiting criminal, Al Sharpton, advising the president. This is the equivalent, in my mind, of, let's say there had been a right-winger who won the presidency, impossible in the broken America of today. But let's say someone on the far right had conned the public into thinking he was mainstream, hid his college records, hid his associations with the Ku Klux Klan, and suddenly he's president. Now it's 4.5 years later, and you wake up, and you got this president having the head of the Ku Klux Klan come in to advise him on riots he's going to organize tomorrow in 100 cities around the country. Welcome to the Savage Nation. 855-400-7282. It gets better every day. Suddenly the president is Trayvon Martin again, which is ludicrous. I mean, this guy had a privileged white boy upbringing. His white grandmother and his white grandfather raised him. In his own autobiography, Obama says he never identified as a black radical until he went to Columbia, and then he found out that everyone liked him more. So, well, that works, man. I think I'll get into it more. I'll get an afro now. I'll start, doing the Marxist thing, and look where he is. So why should he stop now? He's lagging. I mean, a few scandals, spying on Americans, etc., trips that cost $100 million, $58 billion to cronies on fraudulent projects that don't exist. So what could be better than to have his old friend, Al Sharpton, come out and say he's going to have rallies in 100 cities tomorrow? I'm thinking about it. I don't think we've ever had a president as low as this in the history of the country. There have been bad presidents. There have been corrupt presidents. There have been presidents who have been a little playful in the woman department. But by and large, we've never had a president as low as this, meaning always going to the lowest level. This man seeks the lowest common denominator in every possible instance. Now, why would he take the Trayvon Martin incident and try to make it into a race war? There's only one reason. Because you never let a crisis go to waste. That's all. You never let it go to waste. Listen to clip number 4 now. This is the President of the United States of America in the year 2013. Listen.
There are very few African-American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store. That includes me. There are very few African-American men who haven't had the experience of
followed
walking across the street and hearing the locks click on the doors of cars.
Oh, that must hurt.
To me, at least before I was a senator.
Wait, hold it. Did you hear what he just said? That happens to me. Do you understand we may have a psychotic in the White House? Do you hear we may have had a man who's had an emotional break? He's now identifying with black kids who hear a lock click when they walk down the street on the door of a car. He just said, that happens to me. He said, that happens to me, not happened to me. First of all, it never happened to him. He was a privileged white boy in Hawaii and then in New York. What do you mean it happens? But now he thinks it's happening to him. This is very alarming. This is very alarming, by the way. Now, you could say, therefore, we should never have anyone run for the presidency unless they've created a product or a service that somebody in the world needed. Even a beauty parlor. If the man had even had a nail parlor that was successful, we'd be a few steps ahead of where we are today. This guy's never even had a nail parlor. Never. He never built a nail parlor that anyone ever went to. Nothing. He's produced not a service nor a product that anyone ever wanted. By his own admission, all he did was shuffle papers. Now he's trying to shuffle races to maintain his power. It's unbelievable. Look, the bottom line is I'm not going to get outraged. I'm going to have a lot of fun today because this is laughable. It's laughable until the cities might burn tomorrow. We don't know what they want them to burn, baby, burn. They never had it so good, you know. Guys like Sharpton, the heyday was when they had the megaphones in streets, things were on fire and people were getting shot. Those were the heydays. So they couldn't get it to happen. Why? Because no one buys this rubbish anymore, except the professional agitators and the white communists. No one believes this anymore. Every poll shows that even children of African descent in the United States of America don't even relate to this rubbish anymore. This is 60s garbage. So who's ever whispering in his ear is whispering the wrong tune to him. And there's only one reason he's doing it. I analyzed it. Look, I can get as righteously indignant as the next man, right? But I'm not going to play the righteous indignation card. The guy is really doing himself a disservice here. There's a couple of points of analysis that are worth mentioning. I wouldn't waste your time otherwise talking about it. He's only doing this, in my opinion, primarily to marshal the black vote for the midterm elections because they're going to lose like Grant took Richmond is what's going to happen. They're going to lose wholesale. This man is the most hated president in modern American history. He is the most divisive president, the most corrupt president, the most incompetent president. He's going to lose seats across the board, and he knows it. Every poll shows that. So what is he trying to do? He's trying to get his base, the African-American base, fired up over Trayvon Martin, who he's trying to turn into Martin Luther King Jr. They're trying to turn Trayvon Martin into Martin Luther King Jr. It's a disgrace. It's unbelievable. Now, who does he link arms with? None other than the shameful alleged reverend from General Electric's propaganda ministry. Now, who is Reverend Al Sharpton? We've been searching for 15 years to find where he's gotten his divinity degree. So far, we haven't been able to locate it. I'm not making this up. We've been looking for 15 years. We do not know where he got his divinity degree from. But it doesn't stop the white schmucks in the media from calling him Reverend. Oh, Reverend Sharpton. Where'd you get your degree from? Who is the real con man? Reverend Al Sharpton. Well, there's a couple of very good analyses. One was put together by Stuart Stevens. It's entitled Al Sharpton's Long History of Race Baiting. It's on michaelsavage.com. I suggest you print it up and send it around to your friends tonight. There's actually another good one from Larry Elder, freerepublic.com, about the real Al Sharpton and his rap sheet. 1, tax evasion. 2, Tawana Brawley. 3, the Central Park jogger scandal. 4, the Crown Heights diamond merchants. Do you know that one? Did you hear about the diamond merchant one? Now, the reason I'm mentioning this hustler is because Obama and he and Holder are actually they're a team. They're tag teaming America. And they know that they're using him, in other words, the way Hitler used the SA, the brown shirts, to go out into the street and scare people. That's my analysis. You don't have to accept it, of course. And if you don't know history, I'm sure you wouldn't accept it. You'd find it offensive. But if you actually knew history, you'd realize how serious this is. The demagogue in Germany had a street thug named Ernst Röhm, who marshaled the brown shirts to scare the middle class. So now we have Al Sharpton going out. He's going to try and get 100 cities to burn tomorrow, in my estimation, while saying, now we want you to follow the law. We want to make sure that you follow the law. We just want to make a point. No, that's not what they want. That's not what they want. In 1991, there was the Crown Heights diamond merchants incident. What was that? In 1991, Gavin Cato, a 7-year-old black child, was killed in a traffic accident in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, when a car driven by a Hasidic Jewish man went out of control. It was actually an ambulance. Sharpton turned it into a racial incident, very much like Trayvon Martin is being turned into a racial incident today by Sharpton and his cohorts, Holder and Obama. Sharpton led 400 radical rent-a-mobbers through the Jewish section of Crown Heights, with one protester holding a sign that read, "The white man is the devil." There were then 4 nights of rock and bottle throwing, and a young Talmudic scholar was surrounded by a mob shouting, "Kill the Jew," and stabbed to death. 100 others were injured. Sharpton said, "The world will tell us that Gavin Cato was killed by accident. What type of city do we have that would allow politics to rise above the blood of innocent babies? Talk about how Oppenheimer in South Africa sends diamonds straight to Tel Aviv and deals with the diamond merchants right here in Crown Heights. All we want to say is what Jesus said. If you offend one of these little ones, you got to pay for it. No compromise. Later Sharpton said, if the Jews want to get it on, tell them to pin their yarmulkes back and come over to my house. And, of course, now he's advising the president, and he's been rewarded by General Electric. So play a little bit of vintage Sharpton in case you're trying to understand what's going on. You're trying not to understand how dangerous this triumvirate is. Listen to the man who is now going to try and get 100 cities to burn tomorrow, in my estimation.
White folks was in the cave when we had built empires. We learned to admire them, but they knew to admire us. We built pyramids before Donald Trump ever knew what architecture was. We taught philosophy and astrology and mathematics before Socrates and them Greek homos ever got around.
Before the Greek homos got around to it. There you go. Not a word out of the gay community. It's unbelievable to me. It's astounding how low the country is getting. I mean, I could do a chant, hey, hey, ho, ho, Alan Bozo have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Alan Bozo have got to go. I hear the Reverend is going to release his autobiography next year, and you know what he's calling it? Does anyone know what the Reverend's autobiography title is? I got the title. I hear it's called Mein Knish. I'll be right back.
A lot of African-American boys are painted with a broad brush, and the excuse is given, well, there are these statistics out there that show that African-American boys are more violent. Using that as an excuse to then see sons treated differently causes pain.
We fell in love one summer night.
He almost sounds plaintive, like he's on the verge of tears. To see sons treated differently? Wow, you talk about over-identifying with a situation. It's not his son. Where does this come from? Let me see if I can phrase this in a way that won't get me in too much trouble. Let me put it this way. A white president gets up there and uses the death of a white boy at the hands of a black mob to do what? To have the head of the Ku Klux Klan or the white supremacist movement go out and hold rallies in 100 cities? And then the night before, Kristallnacht, as it were, Kristallnacht, he goes out to try and stir up people in 100 cities to come out and do what? Well, now we want you to remain calm, of course. No, you don't want it to remain calm. You want violence. You want things to happen. So you can step in, take control, and God knows do what to the people. It's unbelievable to me. It's really frightening. I'll tell you, you could let it frighten you. But when you see the president, the most powerful man in the world, with the whole military at his command, the entire military, the entire arsenal, the entire history of this world at his hands, to stoop to this level, to inject himself back into a racially charged situation, means that he's up to no good and no good can come of it. He is up to no good and no good can come of it. And I will tell you this, I will wager a bet that the biggest losers in this entire sad tragedy are going to be people in the middle class who are of African descent. People who pulled themselves up and worked very hard to get away from this garbage are probably more offended by this than I am. They're more threatened by this violence, this potential violence. They're more threatened by the 60s garbage than you could ever imagine. It's very similar to the fact that many of you don't understand this. The average Muslim in the Middle East, the average, let's say, middle-class Muslim family, is more threatened by Al-Qaeda, by the Taliban than you are. They know firsthand what they're capable of. They know what they've got to lose at the hands of the radical Islamists. It's the same in America. Now, I have known since Obama came on the scene who he was, and I know who Michelle was. Everyone knew it who studied their history. We know about the history of the lack of history of their history. We know that his college records have never been released. We know that there's an awful lot of shady things that have gone on in the past. We don't have to relive them all. I don't want to do it again. But for him to be doing this now with his cohort, the Freddy's Fashion Mart maven, the author of Mein Knish, none other than this guy, Al Sharpton, doesn't that worry you? Does that not tell you that this is a disgrace? Well, okay, you can call me at 855-107-282. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about the President of the United States using the death of Trayvon Martin for political gain? I'll make it very simple. How do you feel about the President of the United States using the death of Trayvon Martin for political gain? WABC, Andrew, you're the first up. Go ahead, please. You're on the Savage Nation.
I'm very offended, and I would say change reality if you want to change perception. In New York City, younger minorities, black men, do commit more of the crimes. The president's focus should be on stopping the crimes, education improvement, families, 80% almost born out of wedlock, focus on that. Hasidic Jewish men, they don't commit a disproportionate. Older black people, they don't commit the crimes. Don't complain about the doors being locked. Complain about the crimes being committed.
Well, he then goes and excuses violence in clip 7. Listen to this. This is something you would have heard in Chavez's South American Banana Republic. This is what we have, the equivalent of Chavez. Listen to clip 7 now. It gets worse.
Some of the violence that takes place in poor black neighborhoods around the country is born out of a very violent past in this country, and that the poverty and dysfunction that we see in those communities can be traced to a very difficult history.
What a bunch of rubbish. So he's justifying this classic liberal lie that if you grow up in a poor neighborhood, you ipso facto you must become a criminal. I grew up in a poor neighborhood. I didn't rob anybody. I don't know anybody who robbed anybody or killed anybody. We were told we had to go to school and make something of ourselves or we'd be nothing. That's all. Our parents goaded us into being productive. The Chinese parents do that. They're called, what are they, tiger mothers? They don't tell their sons to go out and kill somebody, nor do they explain away the child's violence. They beat the hell out of them if they commit violence in the Chinese community.
I think it's understandable that there have been demonstrations and vigils and protests, and some of that stuff is just going to have to work its way through as long as it remains nonviolent.
Yeah, right.
If I see any violence, then I will remind folks that that dishonors.
Oh, really, yeah.
What happened to Trayvon Martin.
You'll remind folks. Just folks. We're just folks. It is Rock and Roll Friday in the United States of America. There's two Americas right now. There's Obama's America and his audience, and then there's the rest of us. I'm speaking to the rest of us. So maybe we need a vigil and a protest for Lady Liberty, who's been raped. Let us say that Lady Liberty has been wrapped up in a cloak and thrown into a warehouse for the last 4.5 years. She's been put on dollies and taken off the island there and put into a warehouse somewhere. And we don't even know where she was put under this guy. Maybe we need a vigil and protest at the Statue of Liberty. Here we have the president using Trayvon Martin as a martyr. He's using Trayvon Martin the way A.H. used Horst Wessel. Moreover, associating himself with the threatening thug from General Electric, Al Sharpton, is in my mind the historical equivalent of A.H. buddying up with the street thug Ernst Röhm and the brown shirts. That's a complete paragraph. Write it down. Try to decipher it. I know many of you built the symphonies and did philosophy and theology and astrology while I was swinging in a tree. But see if you can take that paragraph and try to understand what I just said. 855-407-282. It's a Friday night. You can get upset if you want, but I think the president is either slipping mentally or somebody is so misadvising him. This can't help him. It doesn't help. Let's put it to you this way. There's two Americas. We know that. There's his America and then the rest of America, the productive America. There's the grifters. There's the grifter class. Some of them are very wealthy, but they're grifters. They have tax credits, tax shelters, tax evasions, tax libations that you can't even imagine. That's the grifter class. They're billionaires, and they love him. They never had it so good. Then there is the underclass that thinks they're going to get something for free from him. And then there's the confused, idiotic mass of morons who have no idea what's going on around them. Then there's the rest of us. Obama has written you off. In my opinion, Obama's written off the productive class of America. He knows he's not getting your vote. So all he could do now is try to drum up interest amongst his his base, the base that I mentioned to you before. And it's well known that right now they're not going to come out for the midterms because they usually don't. There's a much lower turnout. The midterm elections could devastate them in Congress, as it should. I remember what happened in 2010. They were wiped out in Congress. They were wiped out. They never forgot that. They know what's coming. And it's going to happen again. As incompetent as the Republican crooks are, they're to be admired compared to this gang. That's all I can tell you. And they know that. They know the people know it, too, and they have to put up with this messy thing called elections. Someone said that in America, democracy is a part-time thing. It occurs every few years when they need your vote. Suddenly they get sort of democratic. Well, I don't even believe that anymore. We don't even have a part-time democracy under this character with this, invasiveness and the spying. But the fact of the matter is he's trying to drum up support for the midterm elections. But I can hear his voice. I'm an expert on voice analysis. One thing I can do is listen to voices. Do you listen to Obama's voice? He doesn't sound like himself. He's not confident. He sounds almost pathetic. He's slipping when he says they close the locks when I pass the cars. Oops, I mean they used to. He slipped into a state of mind that doesn't make any sense to me. It seems as though someone has put this in his head and told him to read the script. That's my opinion. I'll take your calls if you'd like. I'd like to know what you think about this. How do you feel about the President of the United States capitalizing on the death of a guy, he doesn't even know him, and trying to make political hay out of it? Does that make you proud? Dallas, Larry, you're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
You could not be more wrong, Mr. Savage, about the president. And as a matter of fact, I think the reason we had the bombing in Oklahoma City and the Tim McVeighs and Terry Nichols and Eric Rudolph is because of hate-mongering bigots like you. If anybody needs a message...
Oh, shut up. Yeah, shut up. Shut up. Who are you? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to shoot your big mouth off like that? What gives you the audacity to think anyone knows you or cares about what you say?
If you can't take it, if you can't...
Oh, I can take it. I'm still here. Why don't you tell us who you are since you know who I am? What do you do for a living?
You want to know what I do for a living?
I asked you what. I said, what do you do for a living?
I just retired from the Army after 27 years of serving my country. I went to Iraq.
Oh, I'm very proud of you. God bless you. Wonderful. Does that give you the right now to be an expert in everything in the world? You were buried for 27 years not knowing what was going on. You followed orders. You didn't know what was going on around you. You followed orders. That's all you did. Why don't you get an education before you start giving procrastinations?
Why don't you get one? Why don't you get one before you start creating Tim McVeigh's? And
well, my friend, listen, stupid. Hey, Mr. Stupid, do you have any idea who you're talking to?
Hey, Al Capone.
Hey, dummy. Do you have any idea who you're talking to? Your education level doesn't add up to my ankle. You have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know a scintilla of history. Nothing. All you know is race hatred. You were steeped in it. You were steeped in hatred from the time you were born. And now you're spewing it out.
Damn Al Capone from the time you were born.
All right, take a walk. That's all. This is not productive. There's an Obama voter for you. You heard the voice of the bigot. The bigoted voice of the Obama stooge. There it is. Ernst Rome and his brown shirts were to AH what that voice and Al Sharpton is to Obama. If you think there's going to be no violence in the next few years, you're mistaken. This president came to power on racial division and racial hatred. This president is the most corrupt, divisive president in American history. Hundreds of billions of dollars have disappeared. Nobody knows where the money went. One scam after another. Now a poor kid gets killed in a tussle. And, of course, if you didn't listen to me, you don't know my position, which is I said that Zimmerman was guilty of manslaughter. I said it 2 weeks ago, but that race hater just now probably didn't hear that. He was given a script to read by his local office. The local brown shirt office probably gave him a card to read. But the fact of the matter is we now have the President of the United States going to the gutter with one of the lowest street rats in the history of American politics, Al Sharpton, in 100 cities to do what? What can they possibly accomplish in those 100 cities? Tell me what can come of it. I want to hear something positive that can come of radicals marching in the gutters in 100 cities tomorrow. There's only one thing that can come of it. Hatred and division. This is something a president should not indulge in.